Just to finish up with a few ha'aros on the rest of Pasuk Tezvav, which we didn't see last time. The Pasuk again says, Ad asher yoniach Hashem la'cheichem kalchem, v'yorshu gam heimas ha'aretz asher Hashem l'keichem noisen lahem, ושבתם לארץ ירושתכם, וירשתם אותה אשר נוסן לכם מוישה עבד השם בעבר הירדן מזרח השמש. So the Pasuk says, ושבתם לארץ ירושתכם, וירשתם אותה. So the Matuda says, וירשתם רוצה לומר, אז תאחזו בה מבלי מערה הול ותקיימו התנאי. Means to say that you'll be able to be oiches in the land, you'll be able to hold on to the land and dwell in it properly without anybody starting up with you or anybody making problems for you. Once you begin to be mekayim the Tanai. So even though they were already holding on to this land from the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, but Yerusha wasn't complete until after they were mekayim the Tanai. Now we spoke about this last time, that there was a whole shmuz at the Shem Yishmul, that the Etzem the Kiyum Tanai wasn't such a parshat tezach, this whole Kiyum Tanai business, because they couldn't say to Moshe that they were being mekayim the Tanai. So that's why they said a double lashon, ושבתם לארץ ירושתכם, that you were already Yerushit b'mei Moshe, וירשתם אותה, they'll be Yerushit again, or make some, maybe, wonder if this is going to work lahalacha, that they would have taka required to make another kinyan after they were mekayim the Tanai. And that's where they're going to be mekayim, be able to be eiches in the land b'milua without any pikpukim, without any urim, masha'en came before they made the Tanai. Okay, fine. That's what we spoke last week. But I think last week was very clear that the Nakuda was that they couldn't talk to Moshe Rabbeinu about this because it was all gebot on the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go to Eretz Yisrael, so you can't, so to speak, stick it in his face like that. Pasuk continues. The Pasuk says, "Asher nosan lecha Moshe eved Hashem be'ever hayarden mizrach hashamesh." So Rashi says, "Ever mizrachi shel hayarden." We spoke about different ha'aros about the Yarden, that it's a chelik of Eretz Yisrael, and up to where in the Yarden is it part of Eretz Yisrael. Le'inyan mitzvah kliyas ba'aretz. We spoke at a Rashba way back when, but the question is that we already know this. We don't know that Bnei Gad and Reuven were Yerush the land and the Ever Yarden is Mizrach HaShemesh. So obviously what we're talking about over here is that Yeshua is coming to hint to them about the Tanai that they made with Moshe, and that is that if they're going to go over the Yarden to fight with their brethren, the rest of Klal Yisrael, then they're going to be able to use the land that they got on the other side of the Yarden. And that's what's being madgish, that this is a matana miyuchedas that was given to them to Yarshin be'evar Yarden Mizrach HaShemesh, because the rest of Klal Yisrael is going to be in the Ever Yarden Hamarovi. So he's telling them that if you're not going to be mekayim your Tanai, you're not going to be able to be mekabel that Yerusha, those properties that you have found for yourselves on the other side of the Yarden, Mizrach HaShemesh. Like Moshe told them in Parshas Matis, "V'm lo yabru chalutzim itchem and oichzu b'seichechem Eretz Canaan," that you're going to be stuck with the rest of Klal Yisrael in Eretz Canaan. That you're not going to get the chelik in Eretz Yisrael, the coveted properties of Eretz Sichon Va'ir like you wanted. And we could be meisuf over here that you're not going to be zeichet to the shmira hamiyuchedes for the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, because if they're not going to be mekayim the Tanai. And that's what the Pasuk says in V'zei Bracha, Tzidkas Hashem also mishpata b'm Yisrael, that Hashem did it, his tzidkus, and his mishpat with Klal Yisrael. And Rashi over there says, Sheheminu Tivrayim b'shomer haftachasom laber siyarden asher kapshu v'chalku, that they believed, that they took Moshe's word for it, they took him seriously, and they were shomer. They kept their promise, and they crossed over the Yarden until they were Kavish Eretz Yisrael, until they were Chelik Yisrael. Just Kedai to be Ma'ir, and the last word of Rashi says that they were Makabel on themselves, that they were shomer their Haftacha to stay there for the Chiluk Aretz as well, which we spoke about last week, that was a Shaila if they would stay there or not. For the Chalukas Aretz, even though the Iker Tanai was only for the Kibush, but there was Malcolm to say that for the Chiluk Aretz, the Iker didn't have to be there, but from the goodness of their hearts, they stayed there. Because that's what real brothers do. They're not going to leave their brothers until everything is settled. The Malbim says later on in Perek Vav Pasuk Zayin, the order of how they went to fight when they went to conquer Yericho. So first all of Klal Yisrael went, and then the Bnei Gad and Reuven, and behind them were the Nosei Ha'aron, were the Kohanim Nosei HaShofet Ha'aron, and then behind them was the Ma'aseh L'chol Machanes. It's pretty clear in the Psukim, which was Shevaton, which is, Medrash says that they would, anything that the Yidden would drop behind, leave behind in the Midbar, Shevaton would collect. You see that the Seder here is from the simplest to the most complex in a sense. First the regular people, and then the big soldiers, and then the Aron. And that's the Seder with the Muhammad Ruchnis, that it was Kulei Al Pines. But if it was, because originally when you fight a war, if you're fighting a war, Al Pi Teva, so then you set up a battlefield, you set up a battlefront, you need to have people that know how to fight over there. And you put pretty strong warriors in the front, not the biggest, but pretty strong ones, and then afterwards, schwache ones, and then behind them, even schwache ones. And Parshas Matos, Moshe tells them, "V'avalachem kol cholotz hasayarden lefnei Hashem," which means that they should go lefnei Hashem, in front of the Aron. But in Parshas Devarim it says, "Chalutzim tabru lefnei acheichem b'nei Yisrael kol b'nei achayil," that you should go in front of acheichem b'nei Yisrael, that you should cross over the Yarden before everybody else. And Yeshua tells them also, "V'atum tabru chamushim lefnei acheichem." Once Moshe saw that there were going to be some sort of fighting al Peter Chateva, so then he says Yaber Chalutzim L'fnei Ha'am. Then the strong warriors should fight, in the front. If you put all the weak people, there's different strategies for different types of milchamas, and throughout Navi, it comes up again and again. Different kings and different milchamas that were fought, but you don't put the best guy in the front. You don't put the schwachste guys in the front, because then they get knocked out right away, and then you have nothing left. Okay, that's very good in terms of understanding the Parsha Pshat in the Pesukim. Now a little more of the Drush. The Bnei Gad and Reuven, part of their bakasha was, Ki ba nachlaseinu eleinu me'evar yardim mizracha. We want our nachla in Evar Yardim Mizracha. The Pasuk in Tehillim says in Ayin Hey Zayin, Ki lo mimoitzo mimayrov, v'lo mimidbar harim, ki lekim shoifet zeyashbil v'zeyarim. And you're not going to find it in the Ma'arav and not in the desert by the mountains, because Hashem is the Shofet. He lowers that one and he raises that one. The Medrash says in Bamidbar Rabbah, Chof Beis Ches, Lo mimar she'odom yotze v'omel b'scheira v'hoilech v'mizrach l'ma'arav nasa ashir. It's not because a person goes out and that travels from east to west does he become wealthy. Afilu parish b'sfinas v'hoilech v'mizrach l'ma'arav. A person could do everything. He goes on the right ships and he goes to the right places. It doesn't become an usher. And Kosh Baruch Hu, makes it that it's always the Svarim speak out when a person gives tzedakah, the usher and an ani. The ani is benefiting from the mitzvah as much as the usher is. Who knows who needs to be masak and what, from a previous lifetime, or in general, what's the galgal ha'chayzer? The galgal ha'chayzer ba'olam. So Kosh Baruch Hu takes the chasam from this one and gives it to that one. And Upshabikesh Sheyashiru Bnei Reuven Bnei Gad. When Bnei Gad and Reuven wanted to become wealthy, Hippel HaMidyonim L'fnei Bnei Yisrael. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that the Midyonim would fall in front of Bnei Yisrael, would lose the battle. Kedei Sheyashiru Bnei Gad and Reuven, so Bnei Gad and Reuven could become wealthy. L'kayim Asher Namar, Kilei Mimaitze Mimarev Lemimid Baharim, Kilekim Shevet Zayashbil Zayarim. For whatever the reason was, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu listened to the bakasha of Bnei Gad and Reuven, and they became wealthy from the Midyonim. And really, this concept is what Rashi says at the beginning of Parshas Bereshis about Lasses on Nachlas Guy, meaning This that the Medrash is darshaning, the pasuk in Tehillim, Lemi Mashadim Yitzav Amot B'Schaira, really we could take it to understand why is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives Klal Yisrael Eretz Yisrael. It's vital this concept of Zeyashbil Zeyor. The Kliyokar in Parshas Mata says that Ma'ariv is Misha Perish B'Sfina B'Yam Shula Ma'ariv. Yama is west. Ki Ma'ariv Nikur Yama. Ki Be'emes or Yama Godel. Well, if you ship Negodim Neruben Omri Ki Boy Leinu Nachlaseinu Eva Yarden, meaning that they wanted ships Mizrach and Keneged Yitzim Mizrach LeMa'ariv Al Kendorsh Ma'Makoz Klem Moitzim Ma'ariv. Lahachish Beis Aswars Ke'echad. Ma'Sheskir Dafka Ruach Mizrach Yitzim B'Scher Misham. If Ruach Mizrach is Toilat Tlech B'Scher Yitzim Kol Ruchis Ki Misham Tzrichas HaShemesh. That's where the sun is. L'Elam Yitzim Adam V'Chitayv. That a person should always, start eastward. And if the sun shines upon him, he'll make it big. Everything is totally where the sun shines. But there's no milah to having money only for people that are orangutan and the gashmis of this world. That's what Bnei Gad Reuben said. That's why they dafka wanted Nachal in the east. And it was basically a business strategy that they wanted also, with the ruchnistic aspect to it as well. And the Medrash says that's that because they got their chelik v'nachal and Eretz Yisrael first, they were galut chila by the Seretz HaShvatim. They went to galus first, but not just that, because they were davuk b'mamayim much more. They were much more attached to their gashmias. They were much more connected. And orangutan, they said they had a lot of mikna. We touched the mikna rav. That was to elevate it, but be'etzem al pi pshat, they were davuk in their moment. Harbe Yosef Mishar Yisrael. What we know from different gemaras in brachas, Tafheim and Beis, and even that Gimel or Ruach Tzveinus. But Agapanim, the Gemara says in brachas, Tafheim and Beis, that a person should place his bed in Safin L'Dorah because the Shechina is b'Mizrach B'Ma'ariv. And the Medrash says, it's a Sifri in V'zei Sabrocha, Hashem Misinai, Ba V'zorach Misei Olam. Hashem came to Har Sinai and he shined down from Seir. Shenigla Kosh Baruch Hu Litein Torah Yisrael. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to give the Torah to Klal Yisrael, Lenigla Leim Ruach Achas. Hashem didn't appear to them from one side, Elam Abba Ruchis, from four sides. Shenemar Hashem Sinai Ba Zurach Tzveinus. When the pasuk says Hashem Sinai Ba, that means from the northern side. The Zorach Miseir Lama is Ruach Mizrachis, and the Zorach is Mizrach, which is east, is Oisios Mem Zorach, which is connected the 40 days in the Torah. The Zorach Miseir Lama. Herfia Mehar Paran is Ruach Dremus, southern wind. Also Meriva Vaiskaidash, the Ruach Maravis is a western wind. If you look in the Gemara Baba Basra, in the Afkafei, the Gemara said that Shechina is b'Ma'ariv. That's why they darshan. That's why it's a free darshan. So also Meriva Vaiskaidash, Klapi Gilu Shechina b'Ruach Maravis. Connected to Gilu Shechina that's on the west side. Obviously, all this needs to be understood a little bit better. But Rabbeinu B'chai says in Parshas Dvarim, Perek Gimel, there's no specific way that the ruchas are mentioned in the Torah. There'll be times where the Torah is talking about the winds and will mention the ruach mizrachi first. Maybe sometimes the Torah is masked the western winds first, sometimes the eastern winds. But that has a lot to do with what was going on, why Dafka, the pasuk says, Me'eva Yarden Mizracha, Me'eva Yarden Mizrach HaShomesh, to point to what the kavana of Negod Reuven was, to be able to, be Isaac in things that are Tachas HaShemesh. I just want to talk about the Sifri for a second, to be masbered a little bit. The Sifri says, "Vayomer Hashem Sinai Bok Shenigla Hamakom Litenterah Yisrael Lemi Ruach Echad Nigla." HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't reveal Himself from one side. Elam Abba Ruchas from all four sides. Nigla Shenemar Vayomer Hashem Sinai Bok Ve'ezoi Ve'ezezu Zurech Revius. This is the fourth side. Kamashanema Lekami Teman Yavai. That Kosh Baruch Hu comes from Teman to Matan Torah. V'nira Lefarish. So V'nira, to explain it like this. Pasuk state Ata Aresel Ataski Hashem Elikim Ered Mulvada. It's a very familiar pasuk that when it came to Kosh Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu was talking about what Kosh Baruch Hu did by Matan Torah. And Rashi says, Kshenasan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Satorah Pasach Lehem Shiva Rekim. Hashem opened up all the 7 skies. Ukashem Shekara Sal Yerim Kachkar Satachtonim. In the same way that Hashem opened up the skies, Hashem also opened up the Tachtonim, which up in Pashtus means that they were able to see the evil spirits and things like that. V'ro Shahu Yechidi, and they saw that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was one. Meaning that the Koichos Haram were nichna to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. The Kachnema Ata Reisel Das. And that's why it says how to Reisel Das. Now, we know there's a Pirkei Rebbe Lezer that says that Arba Ruchas Nivra Ba'olam, and goes on describing what each one of these Ruchas represents. And V'oid Pinas Hatzafa in Barak HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'lo Gamrei. The northern side HaKadosh Baruch Hu created it, and he didn't finish it off, he didn't seal it up. V'lama Lo Gamrei. Why didn't he close it up? Omar, he said, Shem Yaber Shum Eleka Ba'olam. If a person who claims to be a god comes and he says, V'yomer Ani Eleka, Ani Elea, he says, I am a god. Ozigmer Sapina Hazois. If you're a true god, then you have to close up the fourth side. V'zyedu Akol Shu Eleka. Then everyone will know that he's a true god. And that's why, in Mitzrayim, Paro didn't let anybody leave. He was very strict about people leaving. The word Mitzrayim, which is mitzarim, which means boundaries, which means locked in, is a mem psucha. The word starts with a mem psucha and ends with a mem stuma, because you could go into Mitzrayim, but you can't go out of Mitzrayim. Paro claimed he was a god. The whole economy and the whole culture of Mitzrayim revolved around the Or. Liya Oiri Vaniya Sisini, as I state in Rashi Necheskel on that pasuk, that the idea was that Paro was so orangutan in the culture of the Nilus that he believed that he created it. But by Matan Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was megala himself on all 4 sides, meaning that anybody that was by Matan Torah saw Einot Mulvadoi, that even on the 4th side, even on the Tzad HaTzafain, that Hashem Yisinai Ba is Rak Tzvainis, the Sifri says. So there was no makam to be mefakvik. The Sheit in Chazal, that the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu left that side open was, because if a person wants to be Taya, Yavaviyita, to give makam for Bechira, to give makam for people to make mistakes. And really, the Shemi Shmuel says that the concept of Kaf Alei Marki Gigas was that they were completely surrounded, that wherever they looked, they saw that they had to be machinei themselves, it was Neskaifif Aleim, that they had to be machinei themselves to the Torah, whichever way they looked. There was no makam to go anywhere else. So that's a pshat in Mizrach Hashemesh in the east, and that by Matan Torah it was all closed. It was all closed up. There was no openings. There was no makam to be mefakvik. Anybody was there is a maimin, and we have to hold on to that amunah. Fine. Adkan that shtickle. One more quick thing. This is just to mention it, not to get into it. It's really a Chanukah. It's really an avodah to discuss on Chanukah, but Shteit in Bereshis Rabbam and Dal Tezvav. Kol Ruchos Kavshu B'nei Yavan, V'ruach Mizrachos Lekavshu. The B'nei Yavan were conquering the entire world. They were able to conquer everything besides the Ruach Mizrachos. The shaila is why. Sir Maral in the Gvuris in Paraches says that the Tzad of Mizrach was Tzad Shabbai Maschilo Ha'or Me'amakar. Mizrach is where things started, it's where the Kedusha comes from, it's where the Makar of everything comes from. And they bring a medrash that says that the Ruach Mizrachis is Metaheres as Ha'olam. That's where the world started from, that's the Makar of everything, so then there's no makom for anything bad to happen from that tzad. And even though Alexander the Great had tremendous keichos and gashmias, but he was stopped in Hoidu, which is in the east, and this is more of a Chanukah shtickle about what happened to Bnei Yaman, why they broke down, so to speak, that they couldn't be kaivish the Tzad Mizrachis. Back to the pasuk for just a couple of seconds, that it says, why does the pasuk have to repeat Hashanasa Lechem Moshe? Right, we already mentioned this twice. Another or is, why do you have to say Eved Hashem, which you didn't say in pasuk Yudalit? And the third ha'ara is, why do you have to say Be'ev HaYarden Mizrach HaShemesh? And in pasuk Yudalit, it said Ev HaYarden, didn't specify which side. So, one of our favorite svarim that we've been quoting from since the beginning, Terech Yedei Secha, in the Heilige B'nai Yisrael, he says, V'nir alidei lefi masha kasavti le'el shomalahem sheyitztarchu Yerusha mechodesh lahachzik. In order to be machzik in the land now, when they come back after the kibush and chiluk, they would need a new Yerusha, even though Moshe already gave it to them. And it wouldn't be considered, they had to do this in a way that it wouldn't be considered like being pegeh in the covenant of Moshe. And he says, Adarabah, that it was because of the chashivas of Moshe, because Pnei Moshe k'Pnei Chama, like he says, he brings earlier b'Shem the Arizal, that Moshe and Bnei Doirei lehoyu yicholim likanis l'Eretz Yisrael, ki sodva madregasim mi madregas Eretz Yisrael. That Moshe and his daughter were not able to enter into Eretz Yisrael because their madrega was a lot higher, that they didn't belong in Eretz Yisrael, that they couldn't fit there. The madrega was too high for that. Because they're the madrega of Pnei Moshe k'Pnei Chama. Eretz Yisrael mitzad itself is bechinas levana. Kasher teita me'inin kipul Eretz Yisrael soidin yu tayireach. For those that know, I guess they know about this. Yehusha Amar Virstem. The Virstem that we're saying over here a second time is the second time of Yehusha. This is what we started off with. Because it's one thing if you're able to be Yerushet because you fit there, but here we're saying that he didn't even fit there. So they got a chelik that was, in a sense, was coming from that gadol of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is a sachresa. And he says that that's the pshat in Eva Yard Mizrach HaShemesh is referencing to being meramas to the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu, that the Yarshning is from the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu because Pnei Moshe Pnei Chama. Now he says in parentheses, Ein Zoyer Min Yisem Hashem Rochav L'Kamon Beis Yud Beis V'Nesatem Li'ois Emes V'Yeshiva Stik V'Schut Hashoni V'Tovin. Okay, we'll get to Mitzvah Shem. We'll see about that then. V'Gam Yesh Lomer Kipshutoy. He also says Al Pi Pasha Pshat Shechivev Beineim Chelkem L'Bal Yischartu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them a tremendous chavivos for their property that they had. V'Yamalahem, and he told them Ki Ashrei Mater Chelkeim Shu Hashanasa LaMoshe Hashem. He says, you'll have one up on everybody else because you got a chelik that Moshe Rabbeinu gave you directly. Even though it's an Evar Yarden, which is Mizrach HaShemesh, but the Ur HaShemesh of Moshe Rabbeinu is still there. Kisham Chalkas Mechayik Safon Moshe Safer Rabbi Yisrael is buried in the chelik of God. Right? And we know, we said this Gemara many times in Kedushin, Ika the Nechale Bahar, the people that find it more pleasant to live on a mountainous area, and some people enjoy living on a flatter piece of land. So Moshe was masada to give each person a chelik that was matim for him and what he was able to like and be able to have a chavivus for it. Because other rights of a kav shalem to shekav shalchaber, a person would much rather have his bad things than his friend's good things. And the MS is that there's a oimek over here. There's an oimek over here that Yeshua was given the leadership. When Yeshua was given the leadership, the pasuk says Isha Sharuach Bay, from Rashi from Chazal Shayochel Halak Keneged Rucha Shakol Chajecha, and that worked especially by getting out the Chalukas Aretz, and also says that the Mizrach Hashem Chavev Beinayim Shabo Lehem Nachalosam Ba'idrichas Hashemesh, they got their chelik when Moshe Rabbeinu was still alive, and Yeshua was Mekayim what the Gemara says in Ksubas Daf Yud Zayin Mashal L'Kain Chayfetz Ben Ashuk. Haver Omri Shavchena B'Fanov, V'Chasu Shalom Shalei Ganena B'Fanov, Afilu Shalei B'Fanov, Ki Ro Masha Ol V'Gerolim Shal Yisrael Masha Omer Amiraglim. This Gemara that's talking about, we know part of the Gemara from the song about Ketan Rakdim Lufin Akala. The Gemara says, Marshal, to a person, should you be Mishabech the product, should you not be Mishabech the product? So you should be Mishabech it. A person's kind of something, a person's kind of Chayvetz Ben Ashuk. You should definitely praise and say, oh wow, you got a great deal, right? And Chas Shalom, you shouldn't be Megan and say anything negative about it. I feel Shalai B'Fanav, because we know what happened to the Meraglim and the downfall of Klal Yisrael that came because of that. Ad kan.